Welcome to the Write Your Book in a Flash podcast with Dan Janal. You'll learn how successful people just like you have grown their businesses, expanded their influence, and made more money by writing a book. On each episode, you'll learn the inside secrets to help you create a book that can serve as a powerful marketing tool to skyrocket your business. I'm your host, Dan Janal. I help thought leaders, business executives, and entrepreneurs write their books. To find out more, go to writeyourbookinaflash.com. Welcome, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, Sam Richter. How are you doing, Sam?
Yeah, I'm great, Dan. It's really an honor to be on your show. I know it's hugely popular, and so I just, like I said, really honored to be included.
Well, thank you, Sam. And it's a great honor to have you on the show because you've spoken everywhere, large corporations, all sorts of businesses, teach them how to use the internet properly. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do and what your book is about?
Sure. So I speak all over the world, like you said, and now I think because I'm all virtual, since we're all virtual, and bits and bytes go everywhere, I think I can technically say intergalactic or universal. But anyhow, I speak all over, and what I talk about is a concept. It sounds kind of technical. It's called sales intelligence. What it really is it's how do you find information on other people? So in sales and in relationship building, you're relevant to what the other person cares about. So my three core messages are how to find the right person, so the right lead, if you will, at the right time, what's going on in somebody else's world where they might actually be interested in taking a call from you because you have a solution that solved one of their problems with the right message. So the concept, it's a little redundant, but I call it real-time relevance or hyper-relevance. So you're always relevant to what the other person cares about. And wrote my first book called Take the Cold Out of Cold Calling. It was back in, I'm going to think now, it's been a few years. Must have been about 2008 that I think it came out. And because it's about the internet, I had to obviously continually update. So I think there were 12 editions, and the last edition came out in 2015. And I've spent all of the time since then taking all of that content and translating that to online resources, online tools, and probably going to be writing a book now that I've got a little bit extra time, be writing a book this summer.
Fantastic. Let's talk about how you repurposed your book to go online.
Sure.
Why did you decide to do it? And can you walk us through some of the steps?
Well, people learn in different ways. And so my book, it was 312 pages, or is 312 pages. I would say the first 15 pages are theory. And then after that, it's, kind of a step-by-step instruction manual on how to implement what I teach with examples. And it was getting frustrating because, you'd write something about LinkedIn and then LinkedIn would change. And luckily, I would print about 5,000 copies at a time. And I think the book gods were looking down upon me because I would usually get to about 30 copies left when LinkedIn, or I just use them as an example, somebody would make a change to their interface. But I was always worried that I'd order 5,000 copies and, I'd sell 10 of them and there'd be a major change to Google. And it'd be like, oh my goodness, now I'm stuck with 4,090 copies. What am I going to do with them? So, I wanted to, taking that into consideration with people learn differently, and online learning was just starting to become really big, 4 or 5 years ago in terms of authors having an online university. So I built an online university that took my book and translated that into video, basically. And then, as all great ideas come in the shower, I was in the shower one day thinking about what new videos I was going to craft, and decided that, nobody really wants a new video. What they want is a tool that just does it all for them. And so I've built some, I call them search engines. They're really search engine overlays, but engines that people purchase, and it automates a lot of what I teach in the book. So now I'm going to go back to producing more videos, and then, like I said earlier, doing another book, because again, people learn in different ways. So I've kind of got the, you can read it and learn how to do it. You can watch it and learn how to do it. I've got a tool that makes doing it yourself a lot easier. And I'm even launching a new program where we do all the work for you. So kind of the soup to nuts, but it all started with the book.
Fantastic. So let's take a step back. You were speaking a lot. You were very popular, but you didn't have a book. Why did you decide to write a book?
Well, that's a great question. Because every time I spoke, someone said, "Where's your book? I'd love to buy your book." And I didn't have a book. So, it's like many authors, I'm sure, you write a chapter here, a chapter there. I was working with an organization, nonprofit organization called the Edward Lowe Foundation, and at the time they had a beautiful retreat center. So I just, told them my story. They said, "Why don't you just come out and finish your book?" So I spent a week there. They stocked the fridge with food, pounded out the book. Still didn't have the guts to go print it, self-publish it on my own. So I just wanted to test it. So every time I spoke, maybe I'd go to Kinko's and I'd print out 200 copies at Kinko's, right, with a nice plastic spiral bind on it, and it it looked 312 pages. It looked like a thick proposal, if you will. Well, every time I brought them with me, I'd sell out, and I'd sell them for $20 and it cost me about $10 to print at Kinko's. And I was like, well, that's pretty good margins. And then at that point, then I felt comfortable going in and doing the self-publishing route. And I looked at publishers, but for many reasons, and we can talk about, I chose to go the self-publishing route.
Okay. And what happened when you wrote your book? How did that change your business?
Well, I think it really, it took it from hey, here's a really good, motivating and entertaining and high content speaker to really a thought leadership in this space. And it's cliche, but it's true. Hey, what makes you an expert in this topic? Well, I wrote the book on the topic. Oh, okay, you wrote the book on the topic. And the book did well. It sold very well and did fine with Amazon reviews and those kinds of things. But so that was really the impetus and what it did for the business is, just take it up a notch of thought leadership and credibility and all those things. Obviously, you can then charge more as a speaker as well.
Did you find it easier to get speaking engagements and consulting engagements once you had a book?
Tough to know what's the chicken and the egg. It certainly didn't hurt. That's for sure. I think being a good speaker begets getting more speaking engagements, because most of my work comes through somebody is in the audience, they heard me, and then they bring me into their company, and they're a member of another association. So it just kind of takes on a life of its own. But certainly it helps a lot, because as I think about it, every time somebody introduces me, he's the author of the Bestselling, is usually the first sentence out of their mouth. So like I said, it certainly brings a level of credibility.
How did you use the book for marketing?
Well, I would certainly for PR, and you're the expert in that, Dan. If a reporter's looking for a quote on something, they're not going to go look for an award-winning speaker. Who's an award-winning speaker on this topic? No, they're going to look for a best-selling author. And so it really helps with the PR side of things, because you can send them, there's something tangible. And in terms of other, when you have a book, obviously if somebody calls and says, hey, I'm interested, I'm considering you and 2 other speakers, you can send them a book, autographed copy of it. So it certainly lends itself that way. And again, it just, like I said earlier, it just, from a marketing perspective, it certainly adds a level of credibility, not to mention SEO, right? So you can search engine optimize your book. You can search it, you build a separate website. I had a separate website for my book that was certainly helped with search engine optimization, meaning, when someone types my name into Google, I want to make sure I'm controlling what's showing up on that first page. And now I've got my speaker website. At the time, I had my book website. The next one, I'll have another book website. So those, search engine optimization certainly helps, because there's going to be a lot of websites or web pages created for the book by other people. So from a marketing perspective, there's not direct marketing. Well, I guess it is direct marketing in the sense of, you're mailing out a book, and then indirect marketing, things like search engine optimization and credibility with reporters.
You raised a couple of very interesting points I want to go into a little bit more detail.
Sure.
Should an author have a separate website for their book, or should it be part of their main speaking or consulting website? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll give you my opinion. I'm certainly not a search engine optimization expert.
Oh, yes, you are.
But I think, well, I don't know. I think
don't be modest.
the more content you can have out there that people go to, because Google obviously is going to look at how popular your site is. So the more content that you have out there that people go to that's associated with your name, the better, in my opinion. So, I had my speaking website is samrichter.com. My book website at the time was takethecold.com. So www.takethecold.com. That now actually redirects to a page on samrichter.com. But if I were to write a new book, I would have a separate website, fully built out website. Duplicate content isn't as big an issue with Google as it used to be, because there's some things you can do to control it. But I'd write a separate bio, separate everything. It would be a completely separate, from a Google perspective, there'd be two Sam Richters in the world. One who's a speaker, one who's a writer, and of course they would link back to each other. Probably even, if you wanted to take it to another level, you could have your own Facebook page, your own LinkedIn group page or company page, your own Twitter account for the book. That just adds a layer of complexity to it for me that I don't want. But if I were to hire an assistant or somebody to manage that, that would also add, more links, more marketing opportunities. So I think, the bottom line is, in my opinion, the more individual, unique websites that you can have with unique domain names, all linking to each other, all popular, all with content that is very specific to the goal of that website, that can only be a good thing.
Cool. What other tips do you have for SEO for consultants, speakers, coaches, and for the book?
Well, I think it's a lot of, the first thing, if SEO is really important, probably hire an expert to do it, because it's really hard. It's not a one-stop. You can't like buy a piece of software, SEO your website, and then leave it alone. It's something that has to be done on a consistent basis. So you might just want to outsource it. I don't, by the way, so just clear. I mean, I should. I just don't right now. Probably would if I was selling a book. But I think, some of the basic things of owning your own name. So, I've probably got 50 different iterations of samrichter.com, different misspellings, all sorts of things. So owning your own name and then having unique content related to that name. There are content marketing services out there. I know, Dan, you are an expert in what a press release can do for you. There is, there's a concept called paid media, for lack of a better term, advertorials. So websites or companies like brandpoint.com. Brandpoint.com is a Minnesota-based company. And, if you've ever gone to like CNN or USA Today and they have, you get your main headlines, and then every fifth headline you might see something where it might say sponsored content. So that would be paid media, where they have a journalist that writes the content for you. But as you know, Dan, when a journalist writes your article, you could do a 2-hour interview. They put one quote in there, and it's the worst thing you said in the 2-hour interview. With paid media, you can control the content. So those sorts of things. But it's all about getting, your YouTube videos. Obviously, YouTube's super popular. So the more unique sites that you can get out there with your name in it, the better.
Great advice. Thank you. Okay, so you also mentioned earlier that you wrote your book in 2008, and you don't want anyone to buy it now because it's out of date, which is cool. This is the first, an anti-commercial endorsement. Do not buy his book. But you did update it for many years. And when I wrote one of the first books about marketing on the internet back in 1993, and I updated it 3 times. The last time was 2000, because the internet was changing so fast, we just couldn't keep up with it. And you could find other things online that were more up to date and faster and all that good stuff. Why did you decide to not continuously publish it? Because with print on demand, you really can if LinkedIn changes something today, you could update that chapter and have it post tomorrow. Why did you make that strategic decision to just stop?
Sure. It's really a time decision. So, keeping it updated in writing just takes time. And the margins were much higher in my online tools. So, I self-published. And the reason I self-published, I had a number of publishers talking to me. But, when you have a book like mine where the internet changes, it was the timelines. It was the hey, we'll get a manuscript in February. We'll review it. The thing we'll have it printed by the holidays. And I'm like, by the holidays, I'll be on my 3rd edition, right? So I couldn't do it that way, unfortunately. Print on demand, that's exactly what I would do this time, Dan. And, I would set it up. if I were to rewrite it differently, I mean, I was very, in this book, I was very specific in the sense of, the button you want to click on is in the upper left corner, right? And so that's what made it so hard. So this next iteration of a book, I would be more general on the instructions, look for a button that does this. The other thing that I do now, so I mean, people do buy the book now. I still get checks, and I get, and so what I've done is I've created a guidebook, which is a 30-page, again, step-by-step instruction manual that I do keep updated on a monthly basis. And so even though when you buy the book now, I would say 80%, 75% is still all legit. Maybe 25% of the things I mentioned don't work anymore. But I put right in the book, even on the last edition, I wrote, make sure, so if you buy the book, you can go in, you have a code to go in and download the reference guide at any time. So the reference guide is always updated. But with print on demand, I think I could do what you suggest, and have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, when I work with a lot of my clients, they ask me, how can we use the book in marketing? And I said, well, one thing you can do is to have updated information or assessments or other bonus material on your website, so people have to go to your website and enter their name and email address. So now you can build your mailing list and market to them that way. What other tips do you have for maximizing the usability and the marketing and the money of your online sources, your online courses or materials?
Yeah, I think, why I did those, again, the same type of thing. I wrote the book because, as I mentioned earlier, every time I spoke, people were like, well, where's the book? And then I started, and then business owners would come up and say, oh, that was a great speech. Could you come out and work with my team? And, well, how big is your team? Oh, we've got 2 people. Well, I knew they weren't going to be able to afford me to come out. And I mean, now they can, because we figured out how to do everything virtually. But at the time, and so I thought, well, I'll create an online university. So I think it's, and I'm not the first person to say this, Dan. I know you say it all the time, but it's how do you take a piece of content, in this example, a book, and extend that into an online university, extend that into tools, assessment tools, surveys, blog posts, social media posts, videos, all sorts of things. And I've done an okay job at that. I certainly need to do much better at leveraging my content across multiple mediums. But that's kind of the goal is and if you think about it, the thought process is, Dan, of writing a book, of doing an outline and putting things down in a logical fashion, having, in my case, here's something you can do, and here's an example of the benefit you'll get by doing it. Well, all of those chapters, if you will, become blog posts. All of those blog posts become videos. All those videos get loaded into an online university. So it's really taking your content and leveraging it, and it all really started from the book. In terms of the online tools, it's, again, same type of thing, just extending those out and using those to generate revenue, really.
Great.
And provide value. I mean, you always have to, that's the number one thing, is if you provide exceptional value based on what somebody else cares about, usually the money part, as long as you're targeting the right audience, will take care of itself.
Great information. One final question here about money, since you bring it up. How do you decide what to charge for online content or courses? And obviously, some things are given away for free as a loss leader or as a way to get people in the front door. But what kind of models do you use to determine how to charge for your core product?
Yeah, that's a great question. The absolute truth answer is I came up with it. It emanated from a very sophisticated part of my body that I happen to be sitting on right now. But the reality, so you look at other people in your space. What are they charging? What is the market willing to bear? You talk to people, but all that, you can focus group things to death. The reality is people will say they'll pay X. But then when you say, well, great, will you write me a check for X? Well, I didn't say I'd write a check for X. I think but other people would pay X for that. So it also is a value proposition and how you market it. So, with my product, the things that I teach, all it takes is for someone to implement one lesson that I teach or one tool, if they get one lead out of it, land one piece of business, for most companies, their ROI is easily 1,000x, 10,000x. So how do you put a value on that? So then I think you just kind of say, well, what's reasonable? Does $99 sound reasonable? Does $199 sound reasonable? And then you kind of look at what your peers are charging. And the bottom line, you test it. So when I come out with the products, I test different price points with different audiences and see where's that line where fewer people are going to buy because it's more expensive versus if it was less expensive, more people will buy. More people means more customer support. So where is that line that it makes, you can maximize revenue, and yet it's you also have to be careful. You don't want to sell it too cheap because then there's no value in it as well. So I think it's trial and error, looking at your peers and, just kind of passing a smell test, right? Like does it seem reasonable that someone would want to pay X for Y?
Great. Sam, why don't you tell us who your ideal client is and how they can get in touch with you?
Well, thank you. Well, my ideal client is really anybody who sells, anybody in business, any business leader, sales manager. Typically, my work is going to be best for a business-to-business salesperson or business to consumer if it's a more complex product like financial services or insurance. It's easier to say who is not my target audience. My target audience is not the barista at a coffee shop. You don't need to go into Google and learn about somebody before you sell a great cup of joe. But for anybody who has competition, who sells a complex product, they will benefit greatly from my tools, my resources, and my work.
Thank you, Sam. And thanks to everyone for listening to the Write Your Book in a Flash podcast with Dan Janal, the only podcast that shows you exactly how people just like you have built their businesses by writing a book. If you'd like to write your book but don't know where to start, you can find great information at writeyourbookinaflash.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another insightful interview to help you become a top business leader.